Welcome to Echo Chamber, and this is Series 2, Part 2, Educational Pressures. Today, I'm going to be specifically looking at personal pressures. So, in continuation to Series 2, Part 1, it is unsurprising that many students try to endure impractical learning routes and choices, as the outcomes of training and education represent important aspirations. Very few people should disagree with this. Why? Well, being trained and having access to good education can often mean that people escape poverty, access better forms of employment, improve their quality of life, access better peers, better friends, better partners, life partners, and should have more choice in their lives, where they live, what kind of work they do, the quality of that work, the quality of their life, the access to services, healthcare, for instance, recreational access, and so forth. So, where does personal pressures come from with regards to education? Well, it comes intrinsically from aspirations that are not properly assessed and executed. This can hinder students. So it can introduce further problems and fears into the learning space, which becomes a burden. These educational pressures show themselves, they manifest themselves in the form of confusion about the process and the purpose of education. It can create emotional turbulence, emotional instability, where the student is up and down about their education. So, feeling both optimistic and pessimistic, feeling confident and insecure about their ability to learn, their ability to use their training and their knowledge in the real world. Some students even shut down and become apathetic, so they become indifferent, ambivalent. This disrupts how they think. It disrupts their ability to focus. It disrupts their ability to make important decisions and to create an environment that is conducive, that is productive, that promotes self-development, that enables them to take on the training that they need for later life in terms of employment. So ultimately, when aspirations become overwhelming because there's no clear way of achieving them, or no clear connection between what students see when they're being trained, what students see from their education, and they cannot connect the dots between training and their education and their aspirations, they therefore lack the ability to work through hard moments of learning. This increases the likelihood of them dropping out, disengaging from their training, disengaging from their education, finding it harder, finding themselves demotivated, finding themselves begrudging towards their obligations. The symptoms of this are when students find their studies or their training laborious, hard work, when they find it frustrating, and when they become disinterested. On the surface, this appears that the student is slow, is dumb, is lazy, is unwilling to connect to the demands that are required of them. But you have to ask yourself, to what degree did they know what they were signing up for? To what degree did they know what was required of them? And even more importantly, to what degree are they aware of what they are doing and how it is connected to their future aspirations or goal in the future? The symptoms that I have listed, the inability to concentrate, becoming disinterested, being frustrated, finding things laborious, a sense of hopelessness and powerlessness creeping in on them, are warning signs. So they are warning signs that the student needs help and guidance to reflect on what is important, why and what needs to be sidestepped and excluded from their day-to-day worries. I've observed this in students I have taught and researched. I've also experienced being far in a trance myself. I like to depict it in this way because there's so much to do in every possible, conceivable direction, and you just don't know where to start. Even if you're rearing to go, you just don't know where to go. You don't know how to go about it, and this can be very disheartening. I appreciate how difficult getting out from under such a mental vice is. This is where Series 1, Managing the Self Through Actions, such as through music, through religious scriptures, helped for the students that I researched in cutting down the noise and in clearing their mind. But in this series, Actions is in the context of assessing your end goals, the student's aspiration, the purpose or reason for why training or education is necessary and important. So the outcomes of that. For example, what is the end goal of a particular apprenticeship, training or education, a qualification, if you will? It's to get a job with a permanent contract, a pension, holiday and sick pay, career development, promotions, training, so forth. So it's not just about getting a job, it's about being very specific. Most people can just get a job, but it doesn't necessarily come with these perks. And these additional perks require additional training, require additional education, require additional experience. So when the student finds themselves in a difficult situation in training or in education, they need to have a clear end goal as to what they're doing now, how that will benefit them in the future in a tangible way, in a way that they can grab, that they can grasp, that they can hold down in times of darkness, shall we say. This is a good end goal, for instance, but it is a relatively long goal. It is a relatively long-term goal, as training, education, and work experience needs to be completed first. This can take several months, or it can take several years, and that's a lot of juice. So, in the medium term, there needs to be a goal. For instance, obtaining forms of work experience, collecting referees that will sing the praises of the student, the person, after training or after education has been completed. In the immediate short term, they should be focused, their goal should be focused, turning up every day to their training, to their learning, studying, revising, completing assessments, increasing their skills and their knowledge base on the labor market. Why? If they want to get from A to B, there's several little steps in between the way. They need to increase their skills and their knowledge base as to what those demands are. They need to stay in touch with those demands. Now, this doesn't happen by a process of osmosis or diffusion or just sitting down in a chair and the knowledge that comes from your instructor falls into your head, or the fact that you've completed training, therefore you are now the perfect candidate for every job. This actually occurs with taking action. So this action requires a plan. This plan needs to be informed. So when training is complete, when education is complete, enough of the relevant skills and knowledge can be demonstrated by the student. Now, this takes personal pressure away from the student by reducing uncertainties. So the student is pressured because they have high hopes, high goals, high aspirations, but they are uncertain because they don't know how to achieve them, and they don't know if they're going about it in the right way, and they don't quite know how to make what they're doing presently, currently, connected or relevant to what they will need in the future. So by taking action in an informed way, it forces a student to take control of their learning, and even more importantly, forces a student to connect with others face-to-face or online to achieve their goals. This creates a basic network and develops networking skills that will be important later on. Instead of just focusing on their agency, and instead of focusing on just getting through the educational community, the educational constellation, as mentioned in the first video of this series, the student is now focusing on creating networks, talking to other communities in the educational sphere, talking to other stakeholders, so their teachers, their instructors, their trainers, people who will become referees, who will sing their praises. And most importantly, the student is now breaking out of the training constellation, the community, breaking out of the educational community and forming new communities and constellations with the labor market, where their aspirations will come to fruition. That's new sets of agency, new sets of structures, new sets of rules that need to be learned. And the sooner students can understand those rules, those communities, those stakeholders, while they are still in education, in training, the sooner they'll be able to understand how to connect the dots, and their personal aspirations will seem like a reality rather than a dream. And this in turn will also reduce the personal pressure, because uncertainty will be removed. It'll be a clear pathway on how to get from A to B, and how all the stakeholders around the student in training, in education, in employment matter. Where their place is, what their value is, how to utilize them, how to approach them, and most importantly, how to position yourself, the student. Mastering one's aspirations through action and through being informed is important. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, please like, leave a comment, or asking for other content. Thank you and goodbye.